So I'm going to start by sharing the poll results, which is we asked you when you came in, have you downloaded the resource guide and graphics yet? And yay, 56% of you said yes, you have. And as Sam said, the really good news is that none of you have said no. So welcome. It is 1 o'clock, so we're going to get started because as per usual, I will run out of time as per usual. I'm going to share my screen and do my intro, but I'm also going to have Sam probably come in at a part to tell you the technical issue at the beginning, at the end. And Sam, just make sure you tell me if I'm not sharing correctly.
I can see your screen.
It's also giving me
I can see your PowerPoint deck.
It's giving me, it was giving me exact advanced sharing options, so I wasn't sure what it was doing. So welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Envisioning Summer 2021 for our Seasoned Pro session. And if you are in this session, we decided for the first time this year to do these welcome intro sets, to break these sets up by how many years you had run or participated or been an active part of a summer program at your library. So this is the session for if you have had 5 or more summers. And we previously had another session that was for if you have 4 or less, and that session was recorded. So if you want to view that, or if you have somebody at your library who wants to view that, it will be posted on the webinar and archives page. But this is the session there, and they are similar. They have a lot of similar content, but they are different in other ways too. And so if you want to share or view them that way, you can. I'm Angie Manfredi, and so now here's my introduction part for those of you that don't know me. Today is my wedding anniversary. I have been married 4 years today, so I thought, as you always like to know, I like to always start off with a picture of myself, even though you're looking at my face, because I think it helps with us connecting. A lot of times this used to be back in the before times, it used to be a picture of when I would travel to visit your libraries. And now I try to show you things from my real life to remind all of you a thing that I think that's really important in the space that we're in now, which is that we all still have real lives and we exist outside of the endless computer screens and drudgery of the world that we live in now. So today is I thought this was a fun one. This is on the left is my husband and I. My husband's name is William. He was an adjunct professor at Simpson College. And he moved with me to Iowa when I got this job. And on the left is our wedding day, and on the right is our Christmas card picture for this year. And they were taken just about 4 years apart, and they have us in our I Love You, I Know shirts, which is, of course, from Star Wars. So I am the youth services consultant. I know many of you already, and since you guys are seasoned pros, some of you know me. Believe it or not, next month I will have been here 2 years. This is my contact information. You will see it again at the end of the session. I love hearing from you. Please never hesitate to get in touch. So, as you also know, I hate saying agenda. I always like to say what we're up to, because I think this is something we are all doing together. And so what we're up to today, our agenda today, what is a summer program? We're going to talk about that a little bit. I know all of you feel like you know that, but we're also going to talk about what is a summer program in the year and the time that we find ourselves in now. And then we're going to follow up with a question that I think is a million times more important than where do I go to buy a t-shirt? You don't need me to tell you where you go to buy a t-shirt. And if you do, then you should have probably come to the newbie session. We're going to talk about why is a summer program. And I hope that more than anything, this year has given you a moment to reflect on some of the whys. And we're going to talk about why that's important and also how it can help you plan for whatever comes up. We're going to look a little bit about what has changed and what hasn't. And then we're going to look at iReads and have a little bit of time of Q&A. But I have to stress that, as per usual, this 1 hour session is not going to be a complete and total overview of the manual. And also, I hope that some of you have been to my trainings before about summer programs. And I am not the kind of person ever, even when we did this in person, who is going to read you the manual. You are all capable of finding a resource guide. You all know how Pinterest works and can look up craft ideas. I do not think that any of you need my hand holding to the degree of, hey, everybody. So this is not just a more philosophical discussion. This is an intro. And one of the things Sam and I talked about that was really helpful that she said for me was this is also a chance to give you permission to begin thinking about this. And sometimes we need that with the ways that our lives and work lives are scheduled and structured over each other. So that's what a big part of today is. And we are going to have other meetings all through 2021, virtual meetings, and hopefully maybe, who knows, someday in person. We're going to have more meetings where we talk about more in depth and get to share with each other. But today is really our introduction, our hit the ground running, our let's start thinking philosophically about where we're going to be in 2021. So before we dig into what we're up to, before we do anything, a gentle reminder that I think is important, especially as we talk about this topic. Stay calm. Look at that rainbow. Isn't that so like soothing? Don't you feel like so soothed? Take a deep breath in. Hold it. And breathe out really loud. Oh my gosh, belly breaths are great, aren't they? They're really great. We're not having this today to be like at the end of this, you have to have everything entirely planned. You have to have all this like ready to go, right? That's not what the point of all this is. This is just to get you thinking. This is to give you some on the ground tools. And so at the same time, we want you to stay calm throughout it. We want you to stay in the moment, stay zen about it, okay? So with those multiple disclaimers, remember, we have no idea what summer 2021 will be. We have no clue, right? We have dreams, we have hopes. I told the panel this yesterday, and it was really moving to me. The first person I know personally has received the COVID vaccine. One of my best friends is a nurse in New Mexico on the border, and she got her vaccine yesterday. And I cried. I was overwhelmed by how much it meant to me to know somebody personally who'd received the vaccine. We feel hopeful, but we do not know what summer 2021 will bring. We don't know what it will bring in the world. We don't know what it'll bring in our library staffing and our budgets. And you have all seen that already because your typical summer planning timelines, I am sure, have already changed and will continue to change more. And that's pandemic library life, baby. It's the way it goes. So you are all in this session because you have planned multiple summer programs. And so you already know in December of 2020, in September of 2020, you already know the ways that planning is different. And that means there is no such thing as this is going to be a typical summer. Even if tomorrow, everybody magically, if the coronavirus was magically gone tomorrow, right? It doesn't mean that 2021 would be a typical summer. We already know that. This is not every other summer. This is not going to be every other summer, just like the past summer wasn't every other one. So work with your staff, work with your board to make several plans. I'm not saying you need to have 87. We're going to get into that a little more later, but now is the time to start working with your staff, your board, your community to make several plans. Discuss what this might look like. Reflect honestly on 2020. And this is a piece of advice I've given many of you over the course of the past 9 months, which also felt like 900 months. We're trying to be realistic and not fatalistic. We're trying to be realistic about what 2021 is going to look like without being like, well, I mean, what can you tell you? I mean, it's over. It is what it is. It's done. Although that is refreshing in a way to think that, because it takes away the stress of like, oh my gosh, I'm ruining everything. I have a lot to say about fatalism if you ever like to get together and chat one-on-one about it. But what we mean by that is, we're being realistic about what we can and cannot do, but we are also not saying there is nothing we can do. That's what that means. And so when I say reflect honestly on 2020, honestly, 2020 wasn't great, man. It was not what I'd like to call a banner year. Okay, it was not great. No, I think honestly, this year was pretty bad. I'd qualify this as pretty bad. What does that mean? That was a joke that I put in, honestly. Reflect honestly. Honestly, it wasn't great. That was really funny. It played really funny to me. And I tested it out on my husband and he was like, please don't. But why did he marry me? If he didn't think that was funny. Okay. What that means, and it's important to say out loud, this is not the summer anybody had in mind. It's not summer anybody had in mind a year ago. It's not the summer that anybody had in mind in March. Right? When all this started. This is not the summer any of us had in mind. And it's important to grieve that and to acknowledge that when we reflect on things. I've said this many times before, you know, I wish it wasn't like this. We all wish it wasn't like this, but it is like this. And so I think that holding those thoughts in our mind is really helpful as we start to move forward. It's difficult and it's sad, but holding both of those thoughts in our minds are important. It's critical. We lost a lot of patron contact. We lost a lot of statistics that power our programs, that power our funding, that power our justification for what we do. We lost a lot of connection opportunities. We lost all of that we get with summer. And I think that this part is important to say aloud too. We lost a lot of fun. And I say that on behalf of me and behalf of you as well. For those of you that know, I was a frontline librarian for almost 12 years. I was closing in, I was 11 and a half years professionally and 3 years paraprofessionally. So this would have been almost my 20th summer of doing a summer reading program. And I understand what it's like. And I mean fun for me. I was going to visit so many of you. I've already been to 60 libraries. As you know, it's my goal to visit all of them. And I was going to come to all of your libraries and I was going to do guest story times and guest programs and help out with your teen program. I had so much planned. I wanted to visit over the course of the summer. My goal was to visit at least 35 libraries. And I know now I would have crossed 100 easily. And it's important to say all that. And it's not only important to say all that because it hurt and it was bad and it sucked, but because if we don't say that, we can't realistically move on to planning to what future summers are going to look like. So with that in mind, saying all that, understanding all that, acknowledging all that, I also then want us all to take this moment to say, but honestly, on top of all that, I am absolutely do not want to be one of those people who's like, let's look at the bright side of something that's killed 300,000 people in America alone. Whee! There is no bright side. There is no bright side, okay? Every day, hundreds of people in the state die. There's no bright side, okay? But what I want you to think about is I hope that over the course of this summer, you learned a few things. I hope there will be some things from this that you take forward. I hope that some changes felt freeing, that for once you didn't feel like, oh my gosh, we have to do this same thing that we've done every summer for 500 years. I hope that some changes felt revelatory, that you had a moment of clarity where you said, man, one of my favorite quotes is from maybe the greatest American author of all time, Toni Morrison, which is, if you want to fly, you got to get rid of the shit that weighs you down. It's from Song of Solomon, if you haven't read Song of Solomon. I hope that surviving this summer has made you proud and has made you see what you can do and what you can mean in the lives of your community. Even if you've been doing this 45 years, right? Even if you've been doing this 45 years, I hope that this summer gave you some insight and some pride in your job and in what you do that you have never had before. And what I want you to do next is take that and think about what that is going to look like and mean and be in action in 2021. So we're going to take a minute for reflection here. What is a lesson from summer 2020 that you learned that had nothing to do with the pandemic? Not like, oh, what I learned is that we need to leave things for 3.5 days to be What is a lesson from summer 2020 that you feel like you can take into 2021? If this was your 6th summer doing this, if this was your 18th summer, I want to hear something in the chat from you. Be flexible, says Jamie. We're going to take a minute to reflect here. I'm going to do this. That's me not talking. I don't know if that came across. I want you to share in the chat, what is a lesson from summer 2020 that had nothing to do with doom and gloom and everybody hates you? It is what it is. The Kurt Vonnegut line. And so it goes. Keep it simple. Roll with the punches. How much a smile and welcome means to people. Patrons like new approaches to things, like Reader's Advisory. Patrons are okay with change. Shout that from the roofs, Erica. Patrons are okay with change. We have a great outside space that I hadn't used before. I love that. Flexibility. Numbers don't matter. Numbers don't matter, that I still have it. I can find new ways to keep in touch. I learned new technology. All the little prizes don't matter. Quality over quantity. Love the idea of returning to play. We use tons of supplies. How important human contact is. We will still try to provide something. This is the time to change things. Get rid of the stuff you want and add all the new things. It's true, revelatory. You want to learn how to fly, you got to give up all the stuff that weighs you down. I love the idea of you have a space you never considered before. You can find new space, that I still have it after 28 years. Yes, yes, that I still have it, that I can still do things. I don't like doing a million programs just to do a million programs. The scales falling from your eyes, Erin, the scales falling from your eyes. We're going to touch a little bit more on that concept in a little bit, but I think it's a key of things. Learn to adapt. We got projects done that we wouldn't have gotten done. Give patrons a chance to explore their creativity. We can do things differently. I love it. Sam, you're saving the chat for this, right? Because the chat is like quality. Like you have to keep this going, right? Like
I can definitely grab the chat.
That's what I like to hear. And we'll include the chat too. So think about what those things have in common, right? And think about how all of that impacts what 2021 is going to look like, no matter what, right? No matter what the situation is. Think about how those lessons scale with each other. Think how connected they are. I'd already been looking for different program locations, and I got more proactive with the reality of space needs. Our staff is nothing short of amazing. All of these things, these are things that we consciously had on our list or we kind of always thought, but this moved into action in ways we couldn't have predicted. So this did come up a little. I don't remember who said it, but I agree. But the inevitable question that comes after this is, stats. Yes. So I think, again, it's important to acknowledge this year, all my numbers were down. Yes. So the first thing is that's for everyone, everywhere, right? We acknowledge that that was not a unique situation, that everybody was having that experience and it was bad. It's okay to say that out loud, and it's okay to also not sit with the feeling by yourself like, oh man, everybody else had really successful curbside, and oh my gosh, everybody else had really great circulation, and oh my gosh, everybody else probably had really popular story times online and ours weren't. We throw that out. We throw out that kind of thinking. We understand that stats reflect more than just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this takes us back to the fundamental question we want to keep coming back to. What story are you really trying to tell with your stats? Those of you that know me know that I feel the most important thing that we do in all things is create a story. It's what draws me to everything. It's been the driving passion of my life. What is the story? What is real? What is the most real is the story we tell. So what story are you really trying to tell with stats? I wanted to use this as an example. You have the power. You have the power to recreate all of this. You have the power to tell the story the way you want the story to go. There's no way for all of this, one way for all of this to look and work. There's not 45 people had to come or else. You are free to reinvent, to recreate on your own. So much of that we've seen come up in chat, and it's true. It can look however it needs to look for the situation, for the summer, for your library. And this is the other overall, many of you have heard me say, and I'll say over and over again, summer is important, but it's only one program. It's only 3 months. You have 9 other months. They're all March, I think. We're still in March. It's March. No, you have 9 other months. You have other programs all throughout the year. Summer is important, but if you scaffold everything on it, then when we see what happens this year, scaffolds start to fall, okay? So this takes us back. Many of you have heard me say this. Another one of my favorite quotes is from Theodore Roosevelt. Comparison is the thief of joy. We also get rid of compare and despair thinking. That's a phrase that's really popular in psychology, but it's also just really popular in general. We do not compare and despair. We throw that away, right? We are not comparing ourselves. We are not competing with any other library. We are we are accepting that it is okay to try things and fail, and there is no one way to do a summer program. Over and over and over, I've said that, and I hope, and again, I see this reflected in chat, I hope that that's one huge lesson that really stuck along with all the monotony and terror and sadness of the past year, that there is no one way to do things, and it's okay to try things, and then they fail, and then try again. We disregard with compare and despair thinking. Oh man, I repeated some stuff. Sam, I knew it. I knew I copied and pasted. I'll fix this up. You're going to get a copy of this presentation. I should have mentioned that. You get a copy of this slide deck. It'll be emailed to you after the class is over, and I'll fix it up. But remember,
this is Sam. I think that UG stats bears repeating. So that's
no,
why
I mean,
did it
it's
twice.
true. That's why I did it, because it was 2 times. Is 2 times. I knew that UG stats was in the wrong place, but for those of you that know me, I knew it was in the wrong place, but my overall goal in life is I'm just going to roll with it. Like, I'm just going to roll with whatever happens. So when a wrong slide comes up, I just go ahead and present that slide too. Have you guys ever done PowerPoint karaoke? It's a really fun teen program. It's where you come up with random slide decks and you make the teens give a PowerPoint presentation of it. I'm really good at it. I've won some like national competitions because that's like my favorite thing. So if you've ever done PowerPoint karaoke, it's a hoot. I'm very good at it, but it's also a really great program for teens if you've never done PowerPoint karaoke. That's a whole other thing if you ever want to. Okay, this is why. What story are you telling with stats? I use this as an example. The library that I used to work at was in Los Alamos, New Mexico. And every summer at the end of summer, I made these infographics and we handed them out everywhere. We put them in the windows of the Friends of the Library bookstore. I took them to the schools. I took them everywhere. Like you couldn't walk 5 feet in Los Alamos without running into one of my infographics, okay? The library in Los Alamos, according to the standards in Iowa, we probably would have been an F, I think, an F library. So big, but not huge. Why? Who cares about this? Okay. This is the story I want to tell. This is the story I want to tell. I don't want to compare 2018 with 2017. We changed what we record in 2018, so I put a different stat on it. We want to say a 15% increase in visits. We want to say we answered 1,748 reference questions. This is the story that stats tell. They're not in competition with each other. They're not in, oh my gosh, I failed. I'm the world's biggest failure. You'll notice, I noticed when I looked at them, we started offering less programs. The attendance went down. But instead of beating myself up over the head over that, I thought of different ways. What about library visits? What about votes in our weekly show? So many different ways to tell the story, right? This is what stats are for. They're not for they're not for Excel spreadsheets. They're not for last summer was good and this summer is bad. Next summer is going to be bad too. They're for what story? The line from our friend Lin-Manuel Miranda, who lives, who dies, who tells your story? Who tells your story? What does that look like? So when you think about stats, oh, the stats were all down, the numbers were terrible, oh, it's so terrible. What about summer, right? So what about summer? What about summer? Summer isn't like last year's summer. Summer isn't like next year's summer. I'm not worried about that. That's not the story I'm telling. I'm telling the story of how we got through a pandemic summer. I'm telling you the positive stories. I'm telling you actual physical stories instead of 488 and 422 and 433. I'm telling you about one mom who sent me an email that said the kids were bored and I said, go get your bag from the library, and they played with the bag with the library for 2 hours and it gave me a moment of respite. That is a statistic too. Okay, that is a statistic too because it tells a story as well. So when you're ragging yourself over the coals, it's so terrible, terrible, so terrible. This is also the element. Cynthia, I'm not sure what the question is, the time frame of these statistics. These are just randos I pulled from the library I used to work at over the course of June and July. We only programmed in June and July. I always took August off, okay? I always took August off. These are just for June and July. If you're talking about the statistics on your end, you can determine that for what works in your community. You can just look at month at a time. You can look at a whole year. That's the other thing that's really great about it is you can tell your own story with them. So this all gets us back to the key of what today is about and what I hope came up. You've heard me talk about this before. I will talk about it forever. Start with the why. Why do you do this? Why do you do this? This is from Simon Sinek. If you have not read the book or watched the TED Talk, this is a TED Talk that's been viewed over like 55 million times. When I saw it, I could feel my brain being like, pew, pew, pew. Find your why. Sinek uses the example of Apple. Apple is what? We sell a computer. Do you want to buy it? How? They're elegantly designed, easy to access. They're very beautiful. You want to buy it? Why is we believe in innovation and thinking differently at every level of everything we do. Now I'm inspired. Now I love your brand. Now I will pay $500 for a pair of earphones from your band because I believe in the why. At the core of all of this, why do we do this? Why do we do this? Your why drives everything else. The what, the how, that's details. Okay, those are details. What is the why? And as an example of this, but why? The Ryan Reynolds meme, but why? What? We track participation, okay? How? We make them log all their time in an app. We make them bring back paper logs to get stamped, okay? But why? Why do you do that? Do you do that because your board said they have to know that? Okay. Is there any way you can talk to your board about if that's what they really need to know? Why do you do that? Stop thinking about what you do. Stop thinking about how you do it. Ask why you are doing it. Ask if there are other ways you can get to that why. Ask if the why can be expanded and can look differently. You can start with the what and you can start with the how. That's absolutely critical. That's absolutely important. But why? Why? You want people to come in the doors. Okay. How do you get people to come in the doors? Why? I want people to like us. Cool. Okay. Why do you want people to like us? Well, if people have to like us to continue to get funding. There's a why. Okay. There's a deeper reason. So I always say when you're sitting down and looking at things and you're going through them and you're being like, this is what worked and this is what didn't work. What, how, but why though? But why though? To quote the meme, why though? I'm sorry, that's like the 5th meme I've mentioned. Did anything change in 2020? Does anybody know? Did anything change in 2020? Can anybody? Okay, that's sarcasm as well. Anything change and say it? I'm not saying you need to have 45 plans, because one of the things I hope you saw was that you could have 45 plans and every one of them didn't work. We're not saying you can't plan ahead, that you should wait until May and just like see how it's going. Like give it a couple months, see how it's going. But there needs to be room in any plan for change. And maybe have more than one plan. Not saying you need to have 45, but maybe not a bad idea to have an A plan and a B plan, maybe even a C plan. Which is not to say you can't take elements of B and put them in A. You can't take elements of C and put them in A. That's part of what knowing the why is about. Because when you know the why, it makes it easier to make an A, B, and C, D, E, F, G, H. When you know the why, you have a core. And having a core makes having multiple plans not logistically easier. Let's be real, nothing makes that logistically easier. But knowing the why makes it easier to kind of have different levels. And summer is all about adaptation, not just this summer, not just this past summer, every summer. If you have a program and you have 45 people registered and 75 show up, right? From that moment, you have to adapt. Are we going to let them all come in? What are we going to do, right? Like all of that comes back to the why. Is the why the 45 people or is the why having 75 people feel welcome? Okay. So all of that. Did anything change? What did we learn from what changed and how can we adapt to it? So that is kind of our first part. Everybody give yourselves a shoulder shrug, and also everybody give yourselves a woo, 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 woo. That's the part about how I want you to feel proud about getting through this summer, and I want you to feel proud about everything you learned, and I want you to feel proud about everything that failed, and I want you to feel proud about everything that changed. Because all of that was about learning as you go, adapting along the way, changing what needed to be changed, and basically just hanging in there. So, woo! So, now, kind of the next section. What is I read? Why I read? First of all, as per usual, the I stands for Illinois. although we're in Iowa. So it also works for Iowa, but it was started by the Illinois Library Association, so it stands for Illinois. However, it can also stand for I, Angie Manfredi, I personally. But that's what the I stands for. I know there's been a little bit of back and forth about that, but we should take advantage of it. Like Oregon is doing this too, and it's not read. Okay. iRead is a vendor. They're just a vendor. Just like CSLP, which is the Collaborative Summer Library Project. They're just vendors. They sell a product. And all we did this year was switch vendors. It was not a huge, gigantic, oh my gosh, end of the world, dive into a rift that leads us to another dimension where versions of our mothers are still alive. I've been watching a lot of Supernatural. I've been watching so much Supernatural, you guys. There's 15 seasons of it. If you still want to use CSLP, you have to pay individually. You can do that. We are not structuring our training around that, and you will have to pay on your own to do that. But if you are really want to use the farm theme, if you really want to use animals, you can do that. But all we did this year was switch to iRead. And many of you have been doing this for a very long time, so you probably remember before we had CSLP, right? So when I was in New Mexico, my first job when I was still a paraprofessional, I was like 19 years old. I helped write the New Mexico manual, the New Mexico summer reading manual. The theme was like humor. I was very good at it because I'm very funny. I don't know if you picked up on that, but humor is like really one of my strengths. We used to do it individually at each library. We used to do it statewide, right? Whatever. So iRead is just a vendor, and we just made a vendor switch, but they have multiple things still in common with CSLP. One of the things I wanted to address is that CSLP was founded by the Illinois Library Association, and it is run through the Illinois Library Association. And so they stress reading a lot. And I know that for some of you, me included, that's discordant because we have worked to bring the phrase summer learning into the forefront instead of summer reading, for a lot of reasons. One of them is we are trying to move past but when I was a kid, when I was little, when I was little, they used to shush you in libraries, okay? When I was little, they used to say, don't talk above a whisper in libraries. And now, anytime I'm in a library, I'm the person who gets shushed. So a lot of things are different than they used to be. Also because we want to assert our place in the community as librarians and as people who work in libraries and as library staff as important parts of the informal community educator network, okay? So we have worked really hard to bring summer learning into the conversation, and 2020 actually helped with that. It really helped us expand what a library could look like. We could be a place that could help you figure out where to get food. We could be a place that could help you figure out where to get health information, okay? And at the same time, we do this because we want to invite other people into the conversation. We've tried not to say just summer reading because we don't want kids to feel like they can't be part of it if they're not reading, because it is so much more than reading. But iRead, as you might have guessed from the name, uses reading. So a lot of their slogans and a lot of the stuff that they have is summer reading. And that's okay. Because I hope the one thing all of you have learned about me in the past 2 years is I sure like books. I am not embarrassed or ashamed to say I became a librarian because I love books and I love reading. I know you're not supposed to say that anymore, but it is absolutely true. That is why this is my career path. Reading is always okay. It's okay to talk about reading. That having been said, it doesn't have to end there. So if you don't want to use reading colors your world, if you just want to talk about come to the library to color your world, summer colors your world, all of that is okay. It's okay to talk about reading and put an and a plus instead of a period at the end of the sentence. So I felt like we needed to address that because all of you have done this for multiple summers. That having been said, what the state library provides to you, this takes us back to the question, and this is no different than when we had CSLP. What the state library provides to you is a resource guide and graphics. The graphics are commissioned from professional illustrators, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You get that free of charge. And this year, regardless of whether we had stuck with CSLP or switched to iRead, we were transitioning to a downloadable version. What you do with the downloadable version after that is up to you, but we were always going to transition to a downloadable version, and this year we did that with iReads. So you should have, and by you should have, that was the question we started at the beginning. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. You should have already received a code to download. That's all you're going to receive. You're not going to get something on a USB. You're not going to get something printed out from us. You're not going to get any of that. You should have already gotten the code. If you want to go into the iRead store and buy your own manual, you can pay $25. They'll send it to you printed. I think it's $25. I'm not sure. You can't do that because what else is there? iRead has a store just like CSLP that has incentives, bookmarks, temporary tattoos, posters. They should have all the same things. They also have a rubber chicken, I guess. So if you want to buy a $3 rubber chicken that makes a noise when you fling it across the room, I would purchase that really fast. If you purchase by January 1st, I think you get it by April. They have the same shipping, everything. You can also purchase software to track reading. That is not through iReads, but that's an additional. I know many of you have done that. I know some of you did that for the first time this year. There's lots of different products. The main ones are Read Squared, Reader Zone, Wandu Reader, and Beanstack. You can purchase those as add-ons. They are complementary with iRead. They obviously know iRead exists, just like they know CSLP exists, and they work same way with that. You can buy books in bulk or other supplies in bulk, which I think was a big thing that took off this year. I said to them yesterday at the newbie session, you should think of all of those as the add-on modules, right? What the state library provides for you is the resource guide, free resource guide, training from yours truly, and other state library staff like Sam and Marianne. That's what we provide for you. The other stuff is the add-ons, right? The pick and choose menus that you can add as it works for you, or what works for your library's budget, what works for your library's staffing, all of that you can pick and choose. You can say, we don't want to buy bookmarks. We're going to just print our own. We don't need to buy a reading log from the store. I found a different place to buy crayons. All of that is customizable on your own. What's provided to you by us is the guide. And directors received an email with instructions to redeem the code on November 16th. If you are the director and the youth services person, you should have received it. If your director has not said anything about it to you, you should talk to your director about it. And if they say, I never got that, I don't know what you're talking about, it's time to get in touch with me. But each library receives one code, okay? You get to redeem it one time. Once you download it, you can do whatever you want with it. You can put it on a shared drive. You can put it on 10 USB drives. You can print all 345 pages of it out if you would like. You can put it on a CD-ROM. I'm not even sure why you would do that. You can save it on one computer that everybody at your library uses, okay? One download. You don't have to access the online version of it every time. You don't have to type in a password every time. One download, then it's yours. And the reason we asked you at the question, we want you to download it now. I'm not saying you have to open it up and read every page out loud every night before you go to sleep, but the sooner you do that, the better it'll be for you. You don't want to be on May 15th and being like, yeah, summer starts and I didn't get it all the way downloaded. So if you haven't done that already, if you haven't talked with your director, if you haven't done that, now's the time. Julie says, does each library have a different code? Each library's code is, the email is the same. It's not a different code, but I can tell who's redeeming it. So do not download it 15 times. The email from that the directors got has detailed instructions. It has a video on how to download it. It's really very clear. Yesterday during the newbie session, somebody downloaded it during our session. And at the end of the session, they were like, yeah, I downloaded it, it's done. So it is a big file. It might take a little bit, so you should prepare at it. Julie, you should send me an email, okay? If you haven't got it or if you're not sure where it is, you can send me an email and I'll kind of follow up with that. That happened to a couple of people. I also want to give a general suggestion that you should look in, if you haven't gotten it or if your director says they haven't gotten it, you should check your spam and your trash because some people it went to their spam and trash. So what's in the manual? This is the guide, the manual, the guide, the manual. Okay, this is the guide. If you haven't looked at it, if you have downloaded it, I would love to hear from you in chat. I would love to hear some thoughts for those of you that have downloaded it and actually looked through it in chat. I would love to hear your experiences with it. I would love to hear from you in chat. This is what it looks like. Okay, so this is the inside of it. And as you can see, it's 356 pages long. So you probably don't want to print it all out, but you might, right? So this is what it looks like. It's very similar to previous guides, but it has so many things that I really dig about it. One of the things I dig, so program development, page 43 to 62 is literally just 43 to 62, okay, is literally just librarians writing out programs that they did, telling you how they did it, telling you who it's for. That's all it is. That's literally the first beginning of it. They're like, here's what it is. Here's all the programs. Here's how you do it, right? So I love that they started with that. A big thing iRead talks about is that it was created by librarians. It was written by librarians for librarians, and every page of it, I can tell that, right? Like I could totally tell that. Same thing, the decorations and displays, they're like literally, here's how I would hang things up in the library. Here's how, this is what I would hang up in the library. So that kind of thing, I think is super useful. It's not broken down. Somebody asked yesterday, it's not broken down by age, but there's a key. So the key tells you like by age, it'll be like this program has appeal for kindergartners. This is a teen adult appeal program, and each program or craft or book that is listed in there has that key. So you can be like, okay, I'm looking for something that has like the K with it. So that's what's inside the guide. I'm excited to hear some of you have already opened it and looked inside it. And again, I would welcome more thoughts about that in the chat. What you've liked about it, what you've struggled with about it. Now is the time and place to kind of talk about it. The guide comes with the graphics inside them, but the graphics are also a separate file. So you get a separate file that's just the graphics, right? So you have a file that's just the graphics, and then the graphics are also included inside the guide, because you do get all the art. Bum, ba, bum. Many of you have already seen this, so we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I wanted to include it. You get all of the art, and that is a separate file. It's included in the guide, but it's its own standalone file. So if you're just that, you know, the thing where you don't want to mess with the whole guide at one time, you just want the art, there's a folder just with the art. The pre-K kid, the pre-K little kid program is the crayons from Drew Draywalt's The Day the Crayons Quit series, illustrated by the man, Oliver Jeffers. One of the things that also iRead does that's different than CSLP is they license characters. So like in the past, like they had Little Critter and they had Little Elliot. So they license characters, and they license the characters for the crayons. And the adult art is, if I've told people this before, if you'd ever like to know what the inside of my brain is like, the adult art is from the genius, the man, the myth, the legend, Herve Toulet, author of Press Here, creator of my background, and that little side panel. So Herve Toulet created the adult art, and the kid art, which is what we think of kind of for like ages 7 to 12, is by probably, I don't want to say the most, but at least one of the top 5 most talented illustrators working in Kid Lit, Juji Morales. And the teen art was created by an animator and an illustrator named Zach Lerner. And so you get the full complement, the full suite of art. But another thing iRead does is they commission the same 2 illustrators every year to make their generic, the generic art. And the generic art, I love it, because the generic art, in my opinion, the generic art is better than like 90% of the art we used to get in general with CSLP. The art on the left is like the ultimate piece of, like, if you had to sum up why I got into librarianship, it's like that piece on the left, right? So you get this as a bonus along with it. The email, Linda, I see the question. The email came from the State Library of Iowa. It went to anybody who is on the director's listserv. It came from the State Library of Iowa on November 16th. The subject line was important iRead instructions enclosed. If you have questions about that, you can send me an email after this is over to follow it up, and I'll give you the instructions to how to walk through to see if it was delivered. They also commission art from this guy every year. I forgot his name. I had it written down, I thought, but I didn't. So one of the things, the reason they commission these is so that every year, if you don't want to buy new stuff from them, the same art and the same style of art comes up every year, so you can reuse it or you can use it at any time. And that is one of the things that's important. You can use this at any time. You can start using it today. You can use it in 2027. You can use it anytime you want. Once you have it, it's yours. It doesn't expire, it's yours forever, and you can use it however you want. It doesn't have to be summer 2020. It could be Reading Colors Your World forever, or for fall, or for a winter reading program, whatever you want, okay? And the badges. We talked a little bit about the badges. We're going to talk about them more at subsequent sessions. You also get the badges. These were originally created to be used with the online software like Beanstack, Read Squared. A lot of those require levels. And so these were originally created to be included with that. You get full sets of numbered and not numbered badges from all of the artists. And one of the things I love is it was created for electronic, right? It was created for electronic stuff, but you can use it in so many other ways. You can make actual physical buttons with it, with a button maker. You can print it out on sticker paper and make stickers with it. You can use it in bottle cap art. You can use it in marble magnet art. You can print them out and make mobiles with them on cardstock. So much of this, again, like this is a million. I got a million project ideas just from looking at these. And these are just tiny ones. You get the full suite for all of them. So Cynthia, every summer through the State Library, you get a manual of some kind. It depends on what vendor we choose to use from year to year, but in the past, you always got a reading guide, and funding willing, that will continue to happen forever, but I don't like to make promises. If that makes sense. I think if you need more explanation of it, you definitely feel free to email me. So what do I do now? Well, now I hope you just in general feel better. No, but right now, I think one of the most important things you can do is we would love to see you download the material. We really don't want to be in the situation where it's like April 15th and everybody's trying to download then being like, I don't know why I didn't. You don't have to sit down and read every chapter. You don't have to start planning. Tuesdays at 4 o'clock, I'm going to have this program that I saw on page 76. Just get it downloaded, begin to become familiar about it, figure out how your library is going to use it. If you're going to put it on a shared drive, if you're going to put it on a certain computer, if you're going to put it on 3 USB drives, if you're going to put it on 1 USB drive, and everybody in your library knows where it is and returns it to the one spot. Download the material. We're really asking you to do that at this point. I've heard from iRead, and we've gotten about 200 people have downloaded it, which is great, but we'd like that number to keep climbing. And again, find your why. Think back, the what, the how, find your why. That is the core of how you'll move forward in anything. And I think it will also be really useful to kind of take away some of that real intense anxiety and start making plan. Notice I put that in accessory. Start making plans and accept that you will need to make plans. I think that's a really important thing. Accept that you will need to have more than one plan. Accept that you are not going to have one plan and that's the way summer is going to go. Accept that you might make 2 plans and need a third. Accept that you might repeat this 2020's plan, but have to add elements when new things happen in 2021. I think even having that happen in our brain can be kind of like a shift. And Cynthia has mentioned, yes, we have collected years of stuff you can't use. Yes. All of that stuff, CSLP used to tell you that you had to throw out the bookmarks, that you couldn't reuse the bookmarks. CSLP used to say, if you bought the bookmarks, once our trademark expires, you have to throw them out. After years of pressure, and because iRead was coming up as a competitor, now they don't say that anymore. But people have tons of stuff that they used one summer and could never use again. You can recycle Reading Colors Your World for a program that you do just with one local kindergarten. You can use it 800 times if you want. You can use one set of the art. You can use the teen art just for an ocean themed program that you do for 8-year-olds. Whatever, it's yours forever, right? Christine, if you, I think we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I think I'm not sure, like, one thing, if anybody would ever like to talk about buying a button maker, you should post that to Library Talk and 800 people will weigh in about the best button maker. It's a thing librarians love to talk about forever. This button maker, the I-723, was super. And if you've never made like bottle cap art or anything, if you have like some specific things you want to talk about with it, I would love to talk through that with you. those were literally just ones that came up in random brainstormings, and we'll talk more about a longer meeting where we're going to talk with each other in person. Suzanne, can you give an example of a why? Why? That's a great question. What is a why? A thing that I came back to was why. Why? One of my whys was this. I want the teens in our community to feel like they have a space where they are welcome at all times. Why? Because I believe that they are important members of our community and I value them and I want them to know that they feel seen and acknowledged. That's my why. My why is that I want the teens in the town that I live in to know that they have a space where they're welcome. That's the why. The what and the how, that was harder. That was much harder. How do I do the what and how? And so some of you have heard this example in the past. Okay, here's an example. We started giving them scratch off tickets. Every day you came to the library, you got a scratch off ticket. You could win a junky piece of prize. You didn't have to read anything. You didn't have to do anything. You didn't even have to tell me your name. But every day you came in, you got a scratch off ticket. That was the what and the how. But the why was because I wanted them to come in every day and see us and know that we were there and we were welcoming, and I wanted them to have positive associations with the library in their mind. I don't know if anybody's here from Waverly. Waverly does a thing called Six and Chips. They did 2 summers ago, which is where you came into the library, and if you read a book that the librarian picked for you for 6 minutes, if you sat in the library for 6 minutes and read a book that the librarian picked for you, you got a bag of chips. You could check the book out, you could take it home, or you could leave it there at the library. Why were they doing that? We want to increase circulation of books. We want to get our staff better at readers advisory. Those are hows and whats. The why was because we wanted to have more kids come in that age cohort. We wanted them to make connections with library staff. We wanted them to see that library staff was interested in them. We wanted them maybe to check. That's the why, right? So that's the why. Always come back to the why sometimes is the easiest part, right? The why is sometimes the easiest part. The what and how are sometimes harder. But like, also, those of you know, a lot of my whys rotate around teens because they're my favorite. Teens are my favorite patron base. So a lot of my whys rotate around 12 and up. Sorry, we got off topic, but I love it. I love it. What is the topic? I don't even remember anymore. Great question. This was a perfect follow-up, Christine. I want to know more about how to make sticker paper. I want to know more about button makers. The button maker conversation, literally, it never ends. No, I want to know more about how to make bottle cap art. One of my personal favorites because it's super easy. So as you know, after this, we would often follow up with an in-person workshop, okay? But we can't have an in-person workshop because it's a plague year. Six and Chips. Yep, it's called Six and Chips. Yeah. Since we can't have an in-person workshop, we're moving the party online. Woo, woo, woo. We're going to come prepared to this session. This session, you have to have a working mic because we're going to expect you to talk. We're going to make a lot of use of breakout rooms. Okay. We're going to be assigning people to breakout rooms. We're going to be making a lot of use of that. And these sessions in January are based on library size. Okay, we divided these up by how many summers you've done it, but the upcoming sessions in January are based on size. However, I hope you all know, because I've said it a million times and I will, I believe that the largest libraries can learn things from the smallest libraries, and I believe there is nothing the largest libraries don't do that the smallest libraries cannot recreate. I 100% believe that, and I have seen that in action, both here in Iowa and also the stuff I did at my own. So sessions in January are going to be based on library size just because we need a way to divide people up, okay? There's just too many of you to all talk at once. So we need a way to divide you up. We're going to do it by size. All sessions are focused on summer. So we're going to go, Christine is an example, we're going to break out into breakout rooms, and in that breakout room, you're going to have 15 minutes to just talk to each other about crafts and say, hey, I have a question. What is your favorite button maker? Does anybody here have a button maker? Hey, I have a question. Have you ever done, does anybody here use Beanstack? I want to talk about whether we should pay for it. So we're going to break you out into different groups and breakout rooms, and you're going to have a lot of chance to talk to each other that way. And there's 2 sessions. You can pick whichever time works better for you, depending on size. So there's a morning session and an afternoon session, and then a morning session and an afternoon session. And you can choose which one works better for you. And then it's followed on the 28th by a session all about adult services and adult program, which is going to be led by Sam and Marianne. Sam, do you want to explain, have I done anything? Have I left everything out here about this part about the registering? Iowa Learns is up and ready.
Yes. Yeah. Yesterday, Iowa Learns wasn't letting anybody register for anything. But today, it's up as far as I know. So send me an email if you have any problems, but you can sign into Iowa Learns. Let me grab that link for you and just search for summer in the little search box, and you're going to get a ton of results, including stuff from our crisis response conversations earlier in 2020 that has some stuff at that has some stuff about kind of moving things online and being flexible and all of that. So grab one of those sessions if they look good. Did you mention the adult one is not broken out by size? That one is just going to be everybody talking about whatever kind of adult programming and stuff that they're interested in. And that one is Marianne and I. So might be slightly lower energy than Angie, but hopefully we get a lot of people there and we get a lot of people talking. Or maybe we'll just draft Angie to get excited for us.
Am I really that high energy? Isn't everybody like this at all times? It feels like they are. It feels like they are. And tied to that, Sam, that was a great follow-up about the ones we provided in the summer, connects logically with, no, I still want more, which is please visit the webinar archives page. Please visit the webinar archives page for past webinars, including the one we did at the beginning of the pandemic when we really dug into the why. I think that one's still super useful. We had another session about iRead where the people from 2 of the women who work for iRead were there and they answered questions. So you can visit all those at the webinar archive page. As I'm sure you all know, there's a whole section just about summer on the youth services portion of the State Library website. It includes the presentation. If you came to the 2020, the last in-person workshops we did, were in March of 2020, and they were about summer, the summer that we didn't get to have. But I have the entire slide deck presentation that I did there. It's like 50 slides and it has program ideas and examples from literally all over Iowa and all over the country. That slide deck is up on the summer section of the Youth Services website. And as a reminder, again, you will get this slide deck in your email. All these links will be live. You can click through on them. And I encourage you to subscribe and submit to the iRead newsletter. What makes iRead great is it is powered by librarians like you. Yesterday, the newsletter went out, and the thing that they featured in the newsletter was Reagan from Cherokee used the art from this to make a Christmas tree in the holiday tree parade, and they featured that in the iRead newsletter. They spotlighted it. They were so excited to get it. They want to hear from you. They want your ideas. They want your ideas for next summer. Next summer, the theme is camp. Next summer, the theme is camping. It's super cool. So if you have camp programs, they're already soliciting ideas. This is the last minute that we have together, as per usual. The real thing about questions and suggestions, I want to hear from you. Please email me. Please fill out in the survey, because you're going to get a survey, what you would like to see in the January sessions when we all have a chance to talk with each other. I want to hear more about ways I can support you, because we're not going to be able to do the in-person workshops, which I was already feeling like I had to change the in-person workshops. As you all know, if I do things for like 3 years, it starts to burrow under my skin. I like can't even take it. I'm thirsty for change at all times. So the questions and answer part here, please send me an email. Let me know. Download the manual. I got an email from somebody who downloaded the manual and was like, here's all the things I loved in it. I loved it. I want to hear that from you. I want to hear that from you before we go into the January session, but I just want to hear that from you in general. Sign up for the newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, boo. Please sign up for the newsletter. That's when you'll get the latest information first. And the December newsletter is late, so I haven't sent it out yet because I have a million other things came up, but it's kind of like a year-end newsletter. And on Monday, On the third Monday of every month, I have Pop YS Pop In, which is literally just I open my Zoom room and we hang out for an hour and talk about everything. And I would love it if you come, like 30 or 40 people come for 10 minutes. If you can come in for 10 minutes, come in for 15 minutes, bring your questions, bring your program successes. It's just a time for us to hang out, chat, bring a drink, a coffee. I meant coffee, bring coffee, and hang out. It's Monday from 2 to 3. I'll post about it on Library Talk and I send out information about it in the newsletter. We did it. And I want to close with this. This is the last webinar we're going to do officially in this year. And I want to say to all of you, I am so grateful to you. I am so grateful to you. I'm grateful to you as a citizen of the state of Iowa. I'm grateful to you as a citizen of the United States who understands what libraries are. I'm grateful to you as your colleague. I am so grateful to you for everything you did this year. And I want you to know that people saw it. And I know that nobody told you thank you enough. I know that nobody told you enough how much your sacrifices and your work meant, but that does not mean it wasn't seen. That does not mean it was not acknowledged. And that does not mean it wasn't important. You changed lives this summer more than you ever have before. You were life rafts in stormy seas for families and children who are set adrift. And you might not ever hear that, but I want you to know that it is true. And I want you to know from me that I am so grateful to you for everything that you have done. And I am so grateful to you for reminding me why I love this profession and why I love what we do. You are amazing, you are fantastic, and you are valuable. You are worth everything. You are matter and you matter to the world. And I want you to know that. And I want to say that sincerely and with all I have. And I want that to be the last message that you think of. And I want you to remember that when things are hard. You got this. You got this. You have got this. And there's going to be more to come. Pew, 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 pew. I don't know why I keep doing finger guns. I'm not, but I love them. There's more to come. Please get in touch with me. Get in touch with me if you don't have your code yet. Get in touch with me if you have suggestions. Get in touch with me if you're feeling nervous about something. Get in touch with me if you have follow-up questions. Get in touch with me if you have ideas for the January webinar. Get in touch with me if you want to follow up on any of this. We have lots of great continuing ed coming in January. We're bringing back Check It Out, which is where I talk about books for an hour, because I know you were all missing that. We have a lot of fun stuff. It's going to be great. It's going to be different, but different doesn't have to be terrible. So thank you all for coming.